Hello. On this particular lesson, what we're going to do is something called an arithmetic sequence. And an arithmetic sequence follows this equation right here. A sub n equals a sub 1 plus the quantity n subtracted by 1, and it's all multiplied by something called d. Now that's a little intimidating for students to start out with. And don't look at this word brung in because it ain't going to help you out either. It's best to explain what an arithmetic sequence is. And what how I usually start this out is like I start by, saying we're going to play a game, and then somebody looks at this stuff and they say, you mean we're not doing something boring like this? And I say, no. We're going to start with a game. Don't worry, this game is going to be so cool. So, nobody really buys into it, but I say, no, I want participation here, and I want to see if we can just go through the whole class and see if everybody can figure out what's supposed to be done. And I'm just going to call people randomly, I'm going to check them off, etc., etc. And what do you mean by this game? Well, I'm going to go ahead and show you what this, activity we're going to do is. And I write this example, and I say, okay, I'm going to write down 3 numbers. I go ... 147 ... I say, there's some kind of pattern here. But I only wrote 3 numbers down. Can you figure out what the pattern is? And you have students look and say, oh yeah, okay. And you give them about 30 seconds, and everybody kind of figures out the pattern. Well, what the pattern is, if you didn't realize this, is you go from 1 to 4 and from 4 to 7. So what you're doing is you're adding 3 each time. And what I tell my students is I point at somebody and they say an answer, I point at somebody else and I check it off, make sure everybody's got it. The first person will say, okay, 10, 13, 16, 19, 22, 25, 28, 31, etc., etc., etc. And that's really cool because it starts to help students understand what's really going on here. Well, what we're doing is we're doing something called arithmetic sequence. Basically, it's a pattern of numbers that you're taking into consideration, and you're adding or subtracting the same number repeatedly and repeatedly to get the next number. So as long as I keep adding 3, it's an arithmetic sequence. Now if I add 3 here, and then I choose to add like 5 or 6, or if I add something different, then it's no longer an arithmetic sequence. But as long as I just follow a pattern, it's an arithmetic sequence. What's really interesting is I can actually do it backwards too. So in this particular example, I'm going to go with, 8, 4, 0, -4, -8, -12, blah, 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 blah. And in this case, what I'm doing is I'm subtracting by 4. And that's also an arithmetic sequence too. But instead of adding, I'm subtracting. And I'm subtracting the same number, and as long as I keep subtracting the same number over and over in the sequence, or as long as I keep adding the same number over and over and over again in the sequence, it's considered arithmetic. So with that said, let's go ahead and try to explain what's going on here. And I'm going to erase this second example because I want to go off this first example. And if you want to try it at home, it's actually pretty cool. I'm not going to sit there and verify it, unfortunately. So a sub 1 just stands for the first term in a sequence, and each number here is considered a term. So the first number that starts off the sequence is a sub 1, so it's 1. D stands for something called the common difference. Basically, how am I changing the sequence? Like, what am I doing from one number to the next? And what I'm doing is I'm adding 3. So in this particular example, my a sub 1 is 1. Now, if the first number were 3, then the a sub 1 would be 3. But whatever the first number is in the sequence is the a sub 1. The D is what you're changing each each term in the sequence by to get to the next one. And what you're doing is you're adding 3. And as long as you're adding or subtracting, it's arithmetic. Now, when I say that, somebody says, can you multiply or divide? Yeah, but that's called a geometric sequence, and we haven't done that yet. My n and my a sub n are the terms that I have to figure out. Now, I didn't actually pose a question to you, but let's just say that I did pose a question. Let's say I want to know what the 100th number of this problem is. So I got 1, 4, 7, this is the first one, this is the second one, this is the third one. What's the 100th number in the sequence? Well, there's actually a very easy way to figure that out. And what you want to do is you want to figure out the 100th number, so you're trying to figure out a sub 100. Now what this means is, what's the 100th term? This means what's the first term, this means what's the 100th term. Now if you don't know, that's perfectly okay. So we're just going to go question mark, I don't know. But I do know that a sub n is 100, which means like I'm trying to figure out the 100th term, so I'm going to substitute 100 in for my n. You know, my n's going to be 100 here, so my n's there. It was 100. Now this can change. Both of these can change. If I'm asking for the 90th term, it would be a sub 90, and my n would be equal to 90. So whatever you're actually asking for is the n. So using this whole construct that we have, my 100th term, which I don't know, is equal to my first term, which is 1, plus 100, which is n, subtract 1, times d, which is my common difference, which is 3. Now, if I were subtracting numbers instead of multiplying by a positive, I would just be multiplying by a negative. That's really all there is to it. So if I'm subtracting, my common difference is a negative number. If I'm adding, my common difference is a positive number. Moving along. A 100 minus 1 is 99. 99 times 3 is, this is so embarrassing, 297. Whew. I didn't think I'd be able to figure it out so quickly, but unfortunately I did. So that's 99. 99 times 3, you do that first, then you add 1. And that's a mistake students do. They say 1 plus 99, then they multiply by 3. No, it doesn't work like that. You figure out what this is, then you multiply it by 3, which is 297, and then you add 1 to it. And your 100th term in this sequence, if I went 100 terms, would be 298. I was going to do this one in the same lesson, but I think I'll just kind of cut it short and then just do this problem afterwards. But keeping that in mind, that's a very basic way to do an arithmetic sequence. I hope that was helpful. You'll see me very quickly, actually. If you're looking at this one, you can go ahead and write it right there. But with that said, have a good day.